to actually join us on the newspaper review this morning, where we take a look at some selected national dailies. And these national dailies have a way of, telling us what the tune is or what the mood of Nigerians or Nigeria as a country is at the moment. And if you've missed our discussion segment, you know what to do. Go to YouTube, Trust TV News, and catch up on the conversation we had. And just like it is a tradition here, we have our Daily Trust newspaper here in the studio, and we will start with the Daily Trust newspaper, and as time goes on, we'll look at some selected national dailies and then analyze them for you this morning. We'll start with the lead story in front of the Daily Trust newspaper with the kicker 438 million naira contract. Interior Minister faces CCB today. So get details of that on page 4 and the Daily Trust newspaper. And then below that, we have a pictorial of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu laying wreath during the 2024 Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration at the National Arcade in Abuja yesterday, the 15th of January 2024. And below that, we have 5 bodies recovered, scores missing as boat carrying 100 capsizes in Niger. But mishap again. Page 8 has details of that story, and it's really heartbreaking. I think these numbers are just the numbers. Maybe developing stories will give us the actual number as time goes on. But let's take a look at the bottom strip. Residents flee as bandit attack military camp in Katsina. Page 7 has details of that story. Armed Forces Remembrance Day as a kicker. Tinubu, Akpabio, and governors honor fallen heroes. Page 6 has details. And we have the front page comment at the masthead, where we have saved Nigerians from kidnappers. That story started on the front page. Continue reading on page 17. And of course, all the thrillers from the African Cup of Nations, where you can watch them, is also in the front of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And that's all the stories we have for you in front of the Daily Trust newspaper.
All right, let's move to the Guardian newspaper this morning. The major story says 2024 oil production. Federal government strained to meet 650 million barrels target over crude-backed loans. You find that major story on page 6. It shows here that Nigeria's oil output's lowest in decades. And in oil production, there is a more vivid picture, of what is happening in that sector. So you can pick the Guardian newspaper for that. It says 7 richest Africans are wealthier than poorest half of continent's population. NPCL shops for net worth investors to manage Port Harcourt refinery. The federal government's 35,000 naira wage award remains till new minimum wage, or it remains till the new minimum wage. That's the NLC declaring that. Now, reconsider INEC budget for accountability and democracy. Incessant kidnappings unsettle Abuja resident. The minister orders discos to supply transformers to communities. Tinubu leads the Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration, and Nigeria's inflation ends 2023 at 28.9% as Naira anxiety worsens the outlook. These are some of the stories on the Guardian newspaper this morning.
Let's move on to the Nigerian Tribune. The story here, just below the Nigerian Tribune mark on the paper, we have Nigeria's inflation rate hit 28.92% in December. That's according to the National Bureau of Statistics. Page 6 has details of that story. EFCC arrests ex-minister Charles Ugu, one other, for alleged 3.6 billion naira loan fraud. Page 28 has details. Over 50 aspirants jostle for Edo gubernatorial ticket. Page 16 has more. And the Rivers Assembly invites 9 commissioners who resigned for screening. Page 15 has details of that. And then we have boldly captioned in the Nigerian Tribune, Adelabu unfolds roadmap for power sector. says federal government spent 700 billion naira on electricity subsidy in 2023. Let's look at the riders attached to this story. Is that state governments to get power of attorney in DISCO's operation. Estimated billing to end this year. And then another rider says Ibadan to get 330 kVA transmission substation. 132 kVA substation in Oyo for upgrade. That's page 7. That's like one of the major things the power minister has said since he became the minister. But you can get details of that story on page 7. Then Nigeria going through epidemic of kidnapping. Amnesty International making that bold statement. FCT residents plan protest today as kidnappers kill 2 more victims. Page 7 and 30 have details of this story. Osun government raised concern over fake federal agents harassing state agents. Page 17 has details. CCB invites Interior Minister Tunji Ojo to appear today. And the last story in front of the Nigerian Tribune says list of new Oyo State Park Management State executives on page 18 to 24.
There's a lot on the front pages this morning.
Exactly.
Well, joining us to dissect these stories is Dr. Theophilus Abba, the Program Director, Daily Trust Foundation. Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for
Good
coming.
morning. Good morning.
All right, let's dive on straight to what the front page is saying. Major story on the Daily Trust newspaper says 438 million naira contracts. I mean, there's been a bit of situation, moving from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and down we're heading to the Interior, where Nigerians are even saying most ministers that are showing themselves are the ones that are being followed right now, are being probed. What is your take on what's happening, Doctor?
Well, I think the better Edu, let me use the word saga now, it's actually unfolding because like many of us who do investigation, you don't pick, only one person cannot commit a crime, you cannot engage in corruption. So if you are going to engage in corruption, you have to bring others, And then in the process of investigation, we are seeing that there are persons, individuals, companies that benefited from whatever transaction took place. And that is where the Minister of Interior is being brought in. We understand that his company was given a contract on the issue of generating a register of the vulnerable in Nigeria. And I think now the fact is that when you talk about conflict of interest, it means that, look, you are in government, you are not supposed to be in business. So if you are a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the law does not permit you to engage in business activities because you should concentrate on the job. You should concentrate on the task given to you as minister. So when his name or a company linked to him, was identified among the companies that benefited from whatever happened in the humanitarian ministry, I think the Code of Conduct Bureau had to invite him, to ask questions.
These things are happening. When the investigation in the humanitarian came up, one thing that we saw the minister, or suspended minister, Betta Edu, she appeared on channels and she said, yes, it was done, but she was trying to act as though it's normal. And it's because a lot of people say the system always run like that, carrying the government money and putting it in an individual account, which was her own case. And then now someone that is a minister also has a contract, a company on that aspect. Is it that these people are not aware? Do they not read, all the acts, the laws that are governing the government's body?
Actually, a lot of laws are violated in Nigeria. So many are violated by those who should know. Now, for instance, if you look at the argument that she came forward with, say, it's normal. Now, the law says that you cannot put so much money in an individual's account. And so you are putting so much money. I say it's normal. It means that it's like it has been happening in the ministry. It's not like I'm not the first person who has done it. And the question I ask is this: you see, for the minister to raise so much money, they will have a permanent secretary who is like the custodian of all these rules in the civil service. Then you have what do you call the accountant in the ministry, you have internal auditors. And the role of internal auditors is to ensure that every transaction aligns with the law. Then you have the anti-corruption desk, in almost every ministry. If you have an anti-corruption desk, you'll be able to run some of this through them. What we are doing, does it violate anything, So, you see, they know. It's not as if they are ignorant. But just say, it is being done, all of us, you approve, and then you go ahead with it. It doesn't work. For instance, one of the things that made people very angry about that 500-something million regarding the Beta Edu. The fact that, you see, there is no airport in Kogi State. And you are going to get the register of the vulnerable, you want to know who are the vulnerable in Kogi State, and you say you are flying. Where are you flying to? Even if it's a private jet, there is no airport in Lokoja. The only place you have something that looks like an airport is in Ida. And that was during the colonial era, a long time ago. So when you see things like that, you become angry because you are appropriating money for what, for what you cannot defend. So then for this minister, to be a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and bringing his own company, to benefit from a contract within that, within government, it's a conflict of interest. It's against the rule of, the code of conduct, rule that all of them signed to. So this is why things like this are coming up. And I'm happy that in this dispensation, we are seeing those in government being probed. We are seeing those in government probed. Previously, it was like, I'm in government, there's nothing you can do. It's only when I leave that you can probe. But we are seeing those in government being probed. But I will encourage the EFCC to make sure that they do a thorough job. So that it is not only few persons, but there are other people who are heads of sections in these ministries who must be held accountable. Because there is a process, there is a value chain. It's not just only one person, not only the minister doing it, but there are persons who have authority to monitor, to check what is being done. All of them must be investigated.
Okay, let's take a look at, the security situation in the Federal Capital Territory now. I'd like to get your take on that. Now that, Abuja residents might be staging a protest today, what do you have to say about this development?
Okay, well, kidnapping, it's not new. But what we expected the current administration to have done, was to say, okay, this is our strategy against kidnapping. The previous one did not work out, well. So we need a strategy. And what we noticed was that when Abba Kyari was in charge of one intelligence, there's this tactical intelligence team. He was head of that team. They used technology. In fact, if you go online, you see a long list of persons that Abba Kyari's team was able to capture. Using technology. They were engaged in, kidnapping, using the kind of technology that he had. He was able to track them and get some of them arrested. And when you talk to the security personnel who are in that department or in that section, you hear some things. They say, look, that they were using a particular technology, particular app or a particular technology to do it. And the subscription for this technology had expired. You understand? So there was a company that gave them that technology to use. And when they couldn't pay the subscription for it, they could no longer use it. So, you see, we need to beef up the tactical team. We need to revive, this team. And at times you hear that, look, even our allowances were not paid. We went out on an operation, and then the allowance that was supposed to be given to us was not paid. Then you keep hearing that, when we catch somebody who was engaged in kidnapping, caught him with weapons, we are told that, well, how are you sure? Did he kill anybody with it? They now charge him with illegal possession of arms. Now, you see, when things like this happen, then you now see police officers or top policemen or the experts, who risk their lives. To say, what's the need? So number one, I will challenge the government. There has to be a strategy in dealing with kidnapping in Nigeria. There has to be a strategy. You see, if you go to Ecuador, they have their own strategy. When bandits, or I don't know what to call them, criminals, enter the TV station, and you know, and harassed everybody. You know, they nearly escaped, but they were arrested. And the next day, you heard about 70 of their collaborators were captured. You understand? So we know that we are facing a very serious situation, but we don't have a strategy for dealing with it. Mexico had this problem. Algeria had this problem. There are countries that have faced this problem. But you see, in our own case, we have not come up with the strategy to deal with this kidnapping. We allow, oh, well, they have kidnapped your brother. Hey, yeah, sorry, take 10,000 naira. That's my own contribution. You know, I call the police. Oh, cooperate with them. Oh, you know, those guys are terrible. You just cooperate with them. And then when your brother, your sister, your sibling is released from, say, thank God they didn't kill him.
So the citizens are not doing enough.
I'm talking, you see, the citizens, it is actually the security agencies. You know, we know how these kidnappers operate. We know how they operate. You know, they send somebody to come and kidnap you. The person that was sent will hand you over to another person who transports you to the bush. Then the person who transports you to the bush hands over to another person where you are kept. And then they'll bring somebody that will negotiate with you. I'm not a security personnel, but I know that this is what they do. So what are we doing to monitor this process? If we know that there are some vehicles that are being used, some kind of transportation that are being used, how are we checking these things? Somebody enters a vehicle from a motor park, and then between Abuja and a part of Kaduna, he's told that he's been kidnapped. And then there's no record. So nobody can say it is this vehicle that he entered. And so there's no way of trying. People just do things the way they want.
Doctor, a recent incident happened of a driver came out with injuries and said the entire passengers were kidnapped.
Yes.
You know, and then people start asking, then why did they release you? Why are you different from them? The passengers are also poor like you.
Yes.
So why were you released? So could it be that it's lack of, you know, the registering and all that holding people accountable for things they do?
You see, I think the major problem is seriousness. You know, if you are not serious about dealing with kidnapping, then it will be with us until Jesus comes back. You see, because if you are serious, you know that at every motor park, every vehicle that is carrying passengers must be monitored. There must be a way of saying, oh, this vehicle carries so and so number of passengers. These are the persons in this vehicle. And if this vehicle, I mean, is collaborating with kidnappers, you can track the owners. Oh, who registered this vehicle? You go to VIO, who registered this vehicle? This is the person, okay, this vehicle carried people, and this was what happened to them. You understand? And then, if you follow that process, even the driver, let me tell you, you see, there was a young boy who was kidnapped with his father, you know, in Kuje. And when we're talking, say, look, I saw the Okada man who took us. I know him. He used to come here to pick people from this place to Kuje. You understand? So this young boy knew this Okada guy. You understand?
And
so
the person
you see, and this Okada man was the one who took them to the kidnappers then, you know, the way they were transported to other locations.
So I wish we could have, you know, details of this conversation now. But because of time, of course, we had to put a stop on this. And this is something that touches all our hearts. You know, when we speak, we get so emotional.
But I think if government were serious, I think this should be dealt with.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Dr. Theophilus Abba, Program Director of Daily Trust Foundation, for joining us this morning. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, of course, we have come to the end of Daybreak on Trust Television. At the top of the hour, 360 Sports would be brought to you by Adini Ajishafe. I am Sumaya Abubakar. Thanks for watching.
And my name is Martia Umar. Have a wonderful day and keep watching Trust Television.